Have you ever wondered what truly happened during one of the most astonishing episodes in biblical history, the parting of the Red Sea? As we dive into this narrative, hold on to your seats because we might unravel some truths that will not only deepen your faith, but also ignite your imagination. From the moment Moses stood at the shores of the Red Sea, obstacles all around him, the tension was palpable. God's chosen people were fleeing from the Egyptians, whose chariots thundering in pursuit sent waves of fear crashing through the Israelite camp. But just like every great biblical adventure, this story contains layers of excitement, suspense, and profound truths waiting to be uncovered. Picture the scene. Moses, a servant of God, gazes out upon the expansive waters of the Red Sea. The sun casts a golden hue over the waves. His heart pounds, not just from the enormity of the task before him, but from the realization of divine intervention that he hoped was imminent. With the thunder of hooves behind them, the tension in the air was thick, a moment suspended in time. And then, what must have felt like an eternity, Moses receives a command from God. "Lift your staff," God says, probably accompanied by an assurance that echoes through eons, "I will make a way." Imagine that moment when Moses raised his staff, the cries of the terrified people mixing with the crashing waves of the sea behind them. It's almost cinematic in its gravity. What was going through his mind? Believe it or not, this moment also underscores a critical lesson. Faith in God isn't about the absence of fear, but about trusting Him in spite of it. Are you ready to see faith in action? Maybe you've heard the tale of the parting of the Red Sea before. Perhaps it was in church, during a Sunday school lesson, or even in a grand movie spectacle. These retellings paint vivid images in our minds, but often they fail to capture the overwhelming suspense and awe that should accompany such a miraculous event. Many believers have long been fascinated by this miracle, but few grasp the profound implications it holds for our own lives. Now, let's fast forward to the moment when the waters piled high, creating walls of liquid might to the left and right. It's at this juncture that we find ourselves turning to our personal challenges, the metaphorical seas that sometimes feel impenetrable. Have you experienced moments where the path ahead feels like an impossible labyrinth, mired in worry and strife? The narrative of the Red Sea invites us to ponder the notion that God specializes in opening ways where we see none. Envision a roadway of dry ground laid before the panicking Israelites, each step filled with the fear and exhilaration of the unknown. As the Israelites began their passage, one could almost hear the heartbeat of the collective people, quickening with hope but still tainted by the lurking dread of the Egyptians. This was not merely a trek through a mystical landscape, it was a journey of faith, a definitive step toward liberation. It's fascinating to consider that the very act of walking through the sea under what seemed like divine protection was not just about the miracle itself, but also an experience of personal transformation. The Israelites left behind not only the bonds of slavery but also the shackles of doubt and despair. Every step on that dry ground became a proclamation of faith that God would deliver them from their fears. How easily we can forget that our challenges often serve as pathways leading us to freedom. As the Israelites made their way across, let's take a moment to reflect on the perspective of the Egyptian army, galloping wildly in their relentless pursuit. They must have been fueled by rage, a fierce desire to reclaim their power over the very people they had oppressed. The sandy ground beneath their chariots churned, their confidence bolstered by disbelief in the assured one. However, God's hand was at work. The very waters that had divided became an impending doom for those who challenged His authority. Now, let's pause here for a moment and dive deeper. For many of us, there come times when we feel as though we are in pursuit of something, whether it be aspirations, recognition, or even redemption. Much like the Egyptians, it is easy to become overzealous or blinded by our desires, forgetting the balance of faith, patience, and humility. We are reminded through this divine narrative that God commands a higher moral order, thus inviting us to trust His timeline and His ways rather than barreling ahead ceaselessly, intent on the outcome we desire. From the corner of our imagination, let's drift back to the safety of the Israelites, who were reaching the opposite shore, witnessing the miraculous event unfold. If one were to capture their expressions, they would reflect not just relief but a burgeoning sense of identity, grouped together in a newfound understanding of who they were as God's chosen nation. In this harsh crossing, they were being molded, shaped by God's mighty hand into a distinct people with a mission. What about you? Have you ever felt the heat of the moment when everything seems uncertain? This account beautifully exemplifies that God's presence is more potent in our trials than in our triumphs. It's an affirmation that no matter the chaos swirling around us, those who seek God while they're in the thick of it will discover an unwavering peace. With the Israelites safely on dry ground, the moment of divine justice was about to unfold. With the divine command echoing through the heavens, Moses lifted his staff once more, this time, not as a means of protection but as a sign of divine retribution. The waters came crashing back together, an image of triumphant justice that will resonate through the annals of time. The resulting deluge would become an everlasting testament of God's authority, demonstrating that He does not permit evil to go unchecked forever. How does this underscore the nature of God in our lives? There's a deep assurance that comes with the realization that we serve a God who does not ignore injustice and who will eventually bring everything to light. It may take time, enduring trials that test our convictions, yet remember this: God will never forsake His people. He walks alongside us even when it feels like the waters are rising. But wait, let's not jump to conclusions just yet. There remains another layer to this narrative that deserves exploring. It's rooted in the identity we are called to carry forth in our own spiritual journeys. When the Israelites finally emerged from the sea, hardened by the experience, they weren't just survivors. They were transformed into a community poised for purpose, ready to embrace their destiny in Canaan. Every challenge serves a purpose, doesn't it? It prepares us for the blessings that lie ahead if we are willing to see them that way. Now, let's not ignore the mix of joy and melancholy that fills the atmosphere once the Egyptians were thwarted. For the Egyptians, it was a harrowing reminder that those who oppose God will ultimately come to ruin. However, it also serves as a sobering reality for believers today, a reminder to align our hearts with righteousness, to seek God's will, and to choose paths that lead not only to temporary gains but also to eternal life. As the account of the parting of the Red Sea nears its conclusion, an image unfolds that is etched in the collective memory of generations. The Israelites stand on the banks of the sea, witnessing the aftermath of God's power. They burst forth into songs of gratitude, and in those melodic praises, we hear the heart of what it means to be delivered. What can we take from their jubilant praise? There's something absolutely mesmerizing about the act of worship. It's more than reciting hymns, it's the intoxicating act of remembrance, a powerful declaration of all that God has done and will do. This ancient song of triumph can guide us in our practices today, igniting a deep well of faith and gratitude. Regardless of current struggles, let us not forget the miracles God has already graced us with: every small deliverance, every answered prayer, every flicker of hope amidst despair. But hold on to that thought for just a moment. As we think about the journey the Israelites took, it's crucial to highlight one last element: the call for ongoing remembrance long after the miracle has passed. Keeping that in mind, how often do you recount the blessings in your life? When burdens come and life's challenges loom large, we are called to remember not just where we've been, but, more importantly, to acknowledge where God is leading us. The Red Sea story reverberates with an enchanting clarity, reminding us that it's our duty to pass down the stories of deliverance and miraculous rescue to each new generation. For it is when we recount these moments of faithfulness that our own hearts stir with hope, pushing us forward into the next chapter of our lives, even as uncertainty looms. As this video draws to a close, I invite you to hold these reflections close to your heart. The parting of the Red Sea is not merely a tale of ancient mystique, it is an echo that resounds through the corridors of time, inviting you into a wealth of spiritual reflection and a deeper understanding of God's unwavering commitment to His people. Take comfort, dear friend, in knowing that every mountain can be moved, every sea can part, and every burden can be lifted, all because there is an undying promise from a God who loves you with an everlasting love. So, will you step forward, take a brave leap of faith, and trust that He will continue to guide you through life's storms? The journey ahead may not always be smooth, but with each wave you face, know that He is paving a path for you, intricately weaving your story into a grand tapestry of divine love and purpose. Endure, remember, rejoice, and above all, believe, for the best is yet to come.